Hi, this is Andrea. I am the mother to a beautiful autistic daughter, and I believe in a better future for her and all other neurodivergent young people. So I hope this is not your first time listening, but if it is, I'm also one of the many parent advocates for neurodiversity in Oxfordshire, UK. Being an advocate allows me to use my voice for my daughter, for other parents, for neurodivergent individuals themselves, and for professionals. Welcome to Season 2 of the Neurodiverse Voices Podcast. Hi, everyone. So, today's guest of the Neurodiverse Voices Podcast is a wonderful lady, if I can call her lady. I think she is a lady. That I started following on Facebook, and then I had the chance to meet her a few months ago. Lucky me. And today she's my guest at the Neurodiverse Voices podcast. Hello, Lorraine.
Hi.
Welcome. How are you feeling?
Slightly nervous, but excited.
Good. That's how it should be, isn't it? And Lorraine, I think that I have a bit of a guidelines in a bit of a guideline in terms of questions, but I can see you are holding the Neurodiuniverse there, and I think I'm going to ask you a bit of a background on that.
I run Neurodiuniverse. I created it after a 3 a.m. idea, as they often come. The idea came just because I wanted to offer something back to society, the neurodivergent community, and obviously being a parent to 2 neurodivergent children and being neurodivergent myself, it was win-win.
Yeah. So the bear, it represents the Neurodiverse project.
He's Rhodey, actually in the middle of the name, in the middle of the Neurodiverse, you can actually make the name, which was somebody else's idea, which we're very thankful for if they're listening. And he represents a brand. He's full of colour. Every bear, we make is different because we are all different, and should be represented as so, to being unique to who we are. And I just love the fun factor of him, and just colour. It's the whole, stand out. We stand out.
Yeah, that's it, and I love it, and I still need to get my own, which I will. Next time we meet, you need to bring me one for me to help the Universe project. So you gave us a bit of a background on Rhodey. Can we start by you summarizing a bit more of what has brought you to this stage of your journey with neurodiversity?
So, as I said, I've got 2 children. I've got 2 girls, 2 beautiful girls, who are on their own journeys through being diagnosed with autism and ADHD. I watched my, now 14-year-old growing up through life and just thought something. I don't like to say the word different, but very different compared to her peers, and almost feeling like lost in life. And went through, quite a stage with her. And then finally she got diagnosed with being autistic and having ADHD, which then was a light bulb moment to her mum, who then discovered my own self through that. And then along came Isabel, my second baby, who also brought a lot of quirky characters to life, and has also been diagnosed with autism and ADHD. So we're a quirky household of neurodivergency.
Amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
And you are one of these examples of a late diagnosis, right? So when did you get your diagnosis?
I was 35. Yeah. And now, how old am I now? 37. Yeah. So 2 years ago.
Neurodiverse Voices Podcast, celebrating difference. 2 years. So can you tell us a bit more about your personal experience with autism and how it has shaped your journey, and how do you feel about having been late diagnosed?
So the journey's been extremely personal because, again, it all came from my eldest daughter. Watching her kind of sadly struggle to fit in almost. And it was like a mirror image of my own childhood, which was actually very traumatic for myself, because it brought up a lot of trauma that I kind of just put in a box and put to the back of my mind. And her discovering she was autistic then opened my boxes again to go, okay, that's me.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that was heartbreaking, but also revolution. Like it was I finally felt like a weight had been taken off my shoulders, that I could finally identify who I actually was, because I felt like I've always been finding myself, but could never put the answer to who I actually was. And then finally my daughter getting diagnosed, it helped me to then diagnose myself and get the support I needed, finally, at 35.
Yeah. And can you give us an example? I don't want to get too private, but if you're happy to share one example of what you mean with situations during your childhood or young.
Again, I was always a child who had a lot of mental health issues, but was never diagnosed as such, but I also always had the tummy aches, always struggled with friendships. I actually remember, I know what masking is. I masked my whole life, basically, till I was probably 35. Changing style of clothing compared to what I was watching, changing the tone of even to the point of changing the tone of my voice. I did it often compared to who I was with and what I was watching, just to fit in and just to get friends and just to feel like I was living. Yeah, I just felt like I never had a point. And it really upset me, because I felt like I had loads to give, but I never understood what that was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's quite common in girls. That's one of the reasons why, until very recently, autism was predominantly in male, but that's because we were lacking the understanding, as girls tend to mask a lot more. It's not so evident. It's more hidden. Well, I'm glad you found yourself. I'm probably sure that you're still in that journey of finding yourself. I think we all are.
The empowering journey now is a very different journey. It's bringing joy to life now, rather than feeling like I'm opening doors now, not closing them. So that's quite exciting, especially at 37. Still feel like you've got loads to do, and I'm like, yes, I can actually do it. So that's exciting.
Neurodiverse Voices Podcast, celebrating difference. Yeah, brilliant. So you wear many hats. You are a mom.
Yeah.
You run the Neurodiuniverse project, which we will talk a little bit more about in detail. But you are also an early years support. I never know. I'm sorry. I never know what EYFS stands for. Can you actually tell us?
Early years foundation stage. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm an EYFS teacher. I'm actually a coordinator at the moment. I'm doing maternity cover. It was one of those roles that was kind of thrown at me, and I went, yeah, I can do that. Spinning a plate. But yeah.
Yeah. So how do you feel about supporting neurodivergent young, not young people in this case? They are actually children, because they are at a very young age. Can you tell us how you feel about it, and also give us a few examples of how you support them on their day-to-day?
I always say I absolutely adore and love my job. I'm labelled Mrs. Tumble as one of the best, And in fact, a child, I've just started my new year again. Obviously, I have a new class every year. And a child, after 2 days of being in my classroom, went home to mum and said, oh, it's like being at a Butland's holiday camp. So I was like, yay! Because I'm building those really strong and secure connections with these children. I absolutely love my job. I love the fact that I get to meet so many different people again. And what I love most about early years is actually meeting the children that, again, to some others might seem as the problem or an issue or, difficult. They're the children I thrive for, and I strive to be the best for, because, again, I guess it comes from being a neurodivergent parent myself and having my children. I fight their corner. And that empowers me every day, like fills my bucket up, going out and meeting a child that isn't quite, and it's awful really, because I love my job, but I also hate it at the same time. It's like a chalk and cheese, because you know, the very systems in place to support the children don't always do the children justice. They're very much a tick box exercises where we know that children and everybody is different. Everybody learns differently. And I love to be the teacher that fights for those children that learn differently. It makes the work interesting. The job is never, every day is different. You're never going to have the same 2 days. Yeah, that's the best part about it. And you get to connect with the families behind these children. And that's where I really find is one of my biggest strengths is making sure those families feel they are supported and they're not going to be judged. We're going to go on a journey together, and that journey is going to be an exciting one because you're going to get to understand your child, but understand their child exactly where they are and where they are, not where society wants them to be. Yeah. And that is key to getting them to thrive anyway. And I love the fact I have a part of providing them the toolkit that enables them to understand their children, getting the support that they need. You know, we know there's waiting lists through the roof, but put them on the right path to getting that support that they need.
Yeah, and that's very much necessary. We all know that at this point, the education system is not the best for neurodivergence. There's a lot of work to do. But if we start with having someone like you in each of the schools, then we are already making the difference. So I really admire what you're doing, and I'm sure a lot of other people do. So keep going. And other people should, or other professionals within the education system should follow Lorraine's example. And I know there's many of you out there already doing that. And it's so important that children have an advocate.
Advocates is the most important thing, and just understanding that every child is different, that, you know, being autistic doesn't mean every autistic child is the same. Being ADHD doesn't mean every child is the same. They've got their own personal journeys, and it's about understanding understanding the child, not the condition as such.
And stop the misconceptions, because, that's still happening. But altogether we can do this, and we will change the world. And I do believe this. Neurodiverse Voices Podcast, celebrating difference. So what inspired you? Let's go back to Neurodiuniverse. I guess you answered this. What has inspired you to create the project? But tell me a bit more about it. What's your objective with it? What are the goals? How do you see it in the future? And give us examples of a few things that you are already doing.
With Neurodiuniverse, I wanted to create a brand, and it's community, so it's a non-profit community interest company that was putting something back into the community to support neurodivergent individuals. Again, not just focusing on children, adults too, because bizarrely, some assumptions are made that autistic children or ADHD children, neurodivergent children, and then they just grow up into adults. Well, there's still neurodivergent adults there that they kind of get forgotten. Hello, I put my hand up here. I'm one of them. So it's about trying to create a toolkit for neurodivergent individuals, both children and adults, that enable them to develop their own personal toolkits that make them thrive and not just survive. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, that we're just coping, where actually we could be thriving. We don't want to just survive, we want to thrive in life. Of course. And you're going to get the best from us when we're thriving. People that are surviving, that's when your mental health issues come in. As we can go down the list of that, but we all want to thrive regardless of any abilities that you have. It's just making sure everyone's got their personal toolkits that enable them to do so. So through the brand, and again, it's slow, chip, because obviously I am working full time. I'm a mum, I'm a wife, and I have about 1,000 animals at home. We won't go into that, but I'm a busy person. But through the brand, I'm creating different social groups. I could do a walk and a talk where I invite neurodivergent, and I've had a really good mix of people there. That's been a game changer for me. Also, social groups I'm going to start doing on the weekend, because most social groups are in the week. There are still working parents out there. There's still children that are meant to be going to education. Again, that's another conversation we won't go into. But I'm providing little social community. I'm trying to provide community projects, but also supporting other community projects to be heard. There's so much out there that we don't even know exist. So supporting other people on their journeys, networking to get everybody to get the support that they need. it's all about thriving. We can all thrive with our own. It's just, so I'm going off on a tangent here, like cookery groups. That's one of my next things. We're launching a cookery course for children at the moment, teenagers aged, looking at lifestyle skills. How can we support those lifestyle skills? So providing other things in the local communities to get that going. If that made any heads or tails of that, well done. But basically, my brain is a spinning, piece of machinery that fires off 15,000 different ideas every day, and I'm slowly putting them into little boxes to make sure they're happening. So I've got walk and talk happening at the moment. There's Saturday social group. I'm just finding the right venue to get that up and going. The cookery course is the next one. I do a lot of fundraising. I do a lot of social media posts. That's the other thing I do a lot on, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, of bringing some humour to what neurodivergence is as well, because to make it more relatable. You've seen my strange dancing things I do and talking about how, I'm going to go shopping to buy some eggs and I come out with, the most random things I never even went to the supermarket for, but bringing some humorous understanding of what being neurodivergent actually is, and not being what we're told it is, but actually lived experience. So providing different social groups to do that, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, to me it does, because as you know, in our previous conversations, I relate very much to that, and I think that's why we connected quite well, because we are very similar in some senses. Yeah.
But some of the other things while I'm doing, I get invited more so now is to go and speak to. So I'm speaking to trainee skit teachers about what it is to be neurodivergent, what it is to be a parent of neurodivergent children, and looking at a strengths approach basically. Yeah.
That's great. I still need to go to the walk and talk. I've been wanting to go, but again, with busy life, hopefully I'll manage to go to the next one.
Neurodivergent teachers on that walk already, again, and that has helped me to then put some more support in place for me. So that even though I started this, it's already helping myself, which I know then is helping others. So yeah.
Neurodiverse Voices Podcast, celebrating difference. Yeah. And this actually leads well into my next question, which is, how do you balance your well-being in between all of this? When do you have time for yourself, and what do you do to
support network around me? So like my husband, he is my best friend, he's my soulmate, win-win to Mr. Jukes. He helps me stay grounded to myself, and I think, again, everyone, you need to have the right support around you to enable you to thrive. I have the right support around me that does enable me to thrive. If I'm having a bad day, they pick me back up in the right way, or tell me I just need to crash on the sofa for 4 hours and play Woody, which a little Tetris game, or gaming. I love gaming. I'm a computer nerd. Like I won't name all the games on here, but I do a lot of games that are kind of creative based, or that offer me to be social with my friends, but in a different way. I'm not one to go out much, walk in nature, I take photographs. I have lots of things that fill my bucket, which won't make sense to other people. Like, for me to sit and rest isn't me looking after my mental health. For me to go on a walk with the dog is, or to take photos of flowers and things like that, that's me. And music, poetry. Literally, I have a whole massive thing of things I do. It just depends on what mood I am to what it does that then supports me. But it's balance is the key, as my husband keeps telling me. Balance is key. So remembering not to spread myself too thinly. So as much as I want to do all these lovely, amazing things, making sure they're spread out so then they don't impact me, because then I'm doing the brand to say about looking after we are who we are. So I have to remember to look after myself too.
Definitely. Because you should be first, because if we are not well with ourselves, then we can't be well to support others. So and I totally agree with your husband. That's one of my mottos in life. Balance is key, and balance is very important. So going back to the education system,
big old thing.
That topic that we don't really like much to talk about, but we have to talk about because we need to voice our children and our neurodivergent people. So what changes do you think are needed to better support young people who are neurodivergent and children, so that, as you said, when they become adults, they can actually thrive, because neurodivergence doesn't stop when they grow up?
Again, it's that assumption, isn't it? But What I believe, again, my own personal professional opinion, is schools need to have a broad... They need to see children as children. They need to see children as individuals. We're not tick boxes, regardless if you're neurotypical or neurodivergent. We are all not the same. We're not going to learn the same. We know the brain is all... Our brains are all different and wired differently. And, you know, you might be a kinetic learner. I might, you know, visual. We're all very different. And the education system doesn't recognise that. We're all fit in the same box. We do not fit in the same box. Nope. And I think education should be linked, every part of the curriculum should all be linked to lifestyle skills, where children are built up those tools to then go on into adulthood to have a good understanding. You know, maths can be linked to banking, invoicing, weekly spend, budgeting and all that sort of thing. Your English could be linked to how do you write complaint letters, how do you write doctor letters, how, you know, all that sort of thing, interviews, CVs, you know, getting a job, you know, science linked to... trying to think off the back of my head now, but you know, understanding the world, getting back out in nature, how to grow things, how to have good mental health, cooking, recipes, exercise. And I believe that is what needs to change, alongside smaller classrooms, where, you know, teachers and the TAs there. And can I just give a big shout out to anybody that works in the school as a support staff? You are amazing, and we wouldn't be where we are without you either. They're unrecognised. But understanding that in order for us to get these children to where we think they should be or where they want to be is smaller classrooms. The whole curriculum needs literally rewriting. It's very outdated now. It's not changed in so many years. It's, you know, centuries old. The whole thing. Yeah, it needs somebody who's really... I was going to say brave to come in and change the whole thing, because that is what it needs. Smaller classrooms where teachers can actually see who's in their classroom and meet those children's needs. If you go into a classroom of 30 children, with all the best will in the world, adaptive teaching is not going to cut it. And that has got to be the biggest change. Again, we can go into funding more, you know, there's so much more that could be done. I do believe, I see little glimpses of it changing. And I really hope that's going to keep, you know, changing, because we're seeing more and more waiting lists for, you know, special education schools. And I'm not saying this is, you know, for every child, because we know all our children are different, but if we just change some of the approaches in mainstream education, you could then not need the other schools. You know, if they were more inclusive, welcoming, understanding places, we might not have all these waiting lists.
Yeah, and from what I learned with my own experience, specialist schools need to prioritize what they call the more severe cases. You know, and very often neurodivergent children don't fit in mainstream schools, and they don't fit in specialist schools. And the other thing I think is that if we take all our neurodivergent children from mainstream schools, the neurotypical children understand neurodivergence. They won't, because we are splitting them from one another, and they need to be aware of this.
Share a really lovely moment I had in last year in school was we have various needs that are coming in and out of the school. We got to a point where I actually got to a point in my classroom, every year I treat it as a blank canvas. So every year I reset the classroom, and then as the children come in, I learn who's coming in my classroom, and I adapt my classroom based on my children who are there presently, because that changes every year. Last year's classroom won't work for this year's classroom, and again, that's another point I need to make. But I got to the point where I actually, rather than working on the neurodivergent child, I worked with the other children to understand the neurodivergent child, who then got accepted to parties, who then got invited into children's play, who then stood up for that child when they were having a difficult time, rather than it being the opposite of... Does that make sense? Yeah. I think often it's pointing the finger at the wrong way. We've got to change our mindset to what neurodivergent, you know, is and isn't. So it's that. So that's my approach with the education. It's again training, staff training, things like that. It's leaving all your bias and your assumptions at the door every day you walk into that room, and working with families is key. Stop pretending that we know these children more than their parents do at home. Being from personal experience, and I reckon you'll agree with this, is I got told a lot as my daughter was growing up that she's fine at school. It's the most damaging thing that was ever said to me, because I assumed it was fine. She was fine at school. And I'm learning now she's 14, and I get teary when I say this. Is she was never fine. She was never fine at school. She coped, but she wasn't fine. She wasn't happy at school, and we are backtracking, years of trauma because of that. Listen to those families behind these children. They know their children. Listen to them, and don't assume you know more than them, because you don't.
No, and I totally agree with that. It's teamwork. My daughter's teacher now, that they have a specialist new classroom for neurodivergent children. From the very beginning, and this is what I love about her, she was like, "We are a team." So we are communicating on a daily basis, and very regularly. And she's right. Yeah. Parents and teachers need to be a team to make things work. Yeah.
Collaborative working is key to the later successful lives of these children and adults. Is key.
Very true. Neurodiverse Voices Podcast, celebrating difference. True. And that also leads to... We almost didn't need the questions. So the next question is, what advice would you give to parents of neurodivergent children, those who might be feeling overwhelmed and uncertain about the future? So I guess, the advice we just gave was more for the teachers, because I guess parents will be, flagging what their concerns. Yeah. So now let's focus on the parents. What's your advice?
Your support network for yourself as well, because if you're not supporting yourself, you're not going to be going forward in kind of the most way, because this journey is tough. I will say, as a parent, a neurodivergent parent, is often a lonely journey. So get your support that's right around you. Advocate for your child. Always advocate for your child. Obviously, speaking collaboratively to the school. Try and get on the same path, as in a supportive worker. Always work within the best interest of the child. Sometimes that's lost because of society, and everything else. But sort your support network out. Get out as much, and I say this because I wasn't that parent when I was dealing with my youngest, who had a very, very difficult kind of sensory diet. A really difficult time between the age of 2 and 4. Looking at her now, people go, "Oh, she's fine." I'm like, you do not know the journey we had to get here. Yeah. But that kind of thing is, again, listening to the parent and collect evidence. And that sounds like you shouldn't have to collect evidence against your own child, but the more evidence you've got to kind of show, sadly, often the difficult times, it's more likely that you're going to be heard as well. I'm kind of losing track of this question. Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
What's the advice for the parents? Well, I think you've given enough. And in terms of the evidence, just to make it clear, you mean reports and keeping diaries?
Sleep, diaries of what they're eating, diaries of sensory diet. You can get sensory checklists that often aren't even... Parents don't even know they exist. There's lots online. You can get sensory checklists through the NHS, as well. That can give you identifications of what your child's sensory needs are, which then can give you the toolkit to move forward in supporting them, again, based on them. Again, that's probably a key bit of information. A lot of parents don't even know they exist. And they go, "I don't know what's going on here." And you go, do a sensory checklist, work out what that is, get some support with that, whether it's auditory, vestibular and all those sort of senses, and then look at the tools that support that area. Networking with the local community groups. There are a lot out there now, because we're on that battle of advocates that have been, we never say they've been for the same shoes. They haven't. They're on different journeys, but they've been on similar journeys that might be able to then offer you some support or give you an idea of where to go next or what to do next. But don't be alone is my biggest thing. Don't ever feel like you're alone, because you're not. Yeah.
Neurodiverse Voices Podcast, celebrating difference. Yeah, that's very true. In terms of sensory, I'm running away from the script now. I hope. No. I hope it's okay. In terms of sensory needs, can you share what are yours?
Sensory, auditory. I'm one of them that have to turn the radio down to park the car. So I will leave work and have the most blaring music, normally Eminem or something like that in the car. But then I cannot stand the sound of somebody chewing gum or something like that. So I'm very auditory based, smells, sense. Even certain words that are said can send my insides upside down. I can't even, I'm thinking of the word now. And people who know me will know what that word is when I can't say it. But and I'm very tactile with things as well, to do with textures. So quite often, even socks and sorry to say knickers, I've got to be a certain thing, otherwise that will send me into overdrive. So smells, auditory, touch, I'd say, are my biggest sensory things.
Thanks for sharing. I'm just asking because some people might not be aware of what exactly, or they might hear about the sensory needs, but they might not necessarily understand what they are.
My interperception, which is like your brain, giving signals, so toileting, and it's quite a personal one, but I know when I share this with people, they go, right, like I have to go to the toilet before the next thing happens, very similar to my child, actually. Again, understanding my child's needs, I go, that's why I do that. I have to, because I don't get the similar signals, my signals aren't kind of the same as my peers as such. So I have to go to the toilet every time I do something. So for example, before I go from here, I have to go to the toilet. Even if I don't need a wee, I have to reset my body signalling. When I get home, I go to the toilet before I can then do the next thing. It's to do with the signals. There's lots in there, and it's also knowing that your sensory isn't. We always think of it just, smell, sight. It's not. There's 8 senses, I think. As I say that, I'm going, I should label them, and I'm going, can I get them all right? So you've got a sense of, and you'll have to help me because I know you know these two, right?
I do, and I'm trying to. Is it proprioception?
Interperception. Here we go. Sense. Yeah, and then that's the 3 extras, and then alongside your sense of smell, sight, hearing, touch. Yeah, we're nearly there.
That's it. Touch, hearing, smell, visual. I might not be saying the words right in English. I'm thinking in Portuguese for some reason. So then there's the touch. Yeah. Did I say the touch? Okay. We just say the 3.
Where we go with this? That's my fault.
Rest assured that we know what we are talking about, right?
It's been put on the spot and slightly out of routine, but yeah.
So at home with your daughters, how do you celebrate? What are the things you do to celebrate and affirm your neurodivergence?
Talk a lot about, one thing I do as a parent is, again, being an open and honest advocate, is when something is overwhelming or I'm struggling, I tell them. I don't hide around that. So I'll be driving in traffic and I literally will label the feeling. And that's one key. If you ever do anything with your child, label the feelings and tell them why, because that will help them understand their nervous system and, and all that is, I'm feeling, for example, this traffic's making me feel really stressed and that's making me, making my heart beat a little bit faster, which is making, and I tell them my body signals. So then when they have those feelings, it normalises them. So that's something we do a lot at home. If something's upsetting us, we talk about why it's upsetting us and how it's making us feel and the impact that's having on our body responses. Another thing we do is, we come home, everyone's got their own way to be. And again, we talked about this earlier, is you leave your judgments at the door as well. They come in, they have to crash. And I allow them to crash. Taken me years to understand that of being masking all day and putting on that front face, so they come home and they do absolutely nothing. Crashing under the duvet, lying flat as a pancake. I do the same when I get home from work, but I normalise that. It's okay to do that. It's not me being lazy. This is my body's way of response to the stuff I've had to do all day. This is normal. So we advocate our quirks, to say the least. The fact that I can walk through a room, I won't say who does this because I'll embarrass them. Literally all these funny noises, and we normalise these things. Everything is fine to be yourself at home. If you walk into my house, you will not be judged for what you do or, you know, how you look or how, you know, because that is just us. So everyone's got that understanding of their own sensory diet. My daughter will strip to the core because that's what she needs to do when she comes in. The other one will crash in the duvet and you won't see her for half an hour, but that's fine. That's what she has to do. Also with eating and things like that, we go based on our needs. We don't pretend at home. We are who we are as part of my brand. We are who we are, and so we celebrate it as such. There is no, you know, we all treat ourselves, we call ourselves Team Dukes at home, and we really are a team, and it's taken us years to understand the team, and that changes all the time, and it's remembering that we are all slightly different and what we can do working together to make sure we all feel good moving forward. So yeah, we're good. We are such a team now.
Yeah, I'm still, it's quite similar here. But I still need to overcome that feeling of guilt of I'm the kind of person, okay, first I need to do my duties, clean, you know, cook, and then I can rest. And then what happens? I never rest. Yeah. So I need to start switching that around. So I think I'm going to definitely follow your example. Yeah. I love this Team Jukes.
Everyone's got a team. Yeah, fight for your team.
Neurodiverse Voices Podcast, celebrating difference. That's great. So what else defines you as an individual? And yeah, I think you kind of said how you take care of yourself in terms of well-being, but can you tell me a bit more about you? So you said you like music. What kind of music do you like?
I haven't got a type of music. My Spotify playlist. I watched something yesterday, and there's this like meme of somebody and they're doing they're crying to this song that is totally me. Like, and it's because music's very personal to the individual, I think, and it depends what's happened on the day or whatever, but it will come into playlist, and every part of song in my playlist is kind of linked to something that's happened in my life. So depending on, does that relate to you? Yeah. So if it's a rhythm of sadness, I can be crying, singing the song, and I'm bouting out these tunes when I just said I cannot sing. Bouting out the next song, it's, you know, a bit of reggae, and I'm, you know, sat twerking away in the car. But that is my brain as well. Again, it's taken me years to understand and be proud of that, to say that is me. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. So I'm living life to live life as well. You know, that's my motto now. And I always start with a positive. So that's something else I actually do is I go in a car, especially from work, because working day to day, sometimes it hasn't gone to plan, or, you know, you have all these extra stresses I won't go too much into. But I go in the car and I say, right, what went well today? And I go, right, da-da-da-da-da. What didn't go so well today? Da-da-da-da. What can I do tomorrow to try and change that? And I do it as an individual. I don't do it based on what a book says or how somebody else says I should be. I do it on what I can do and what my toolkit is enabling me to do. I do that. For example, if it was really loud in the room, the next day I wear my ear defenders. And that's another thing I have to say as a neurodivergent advocate is I proudly wear my ear defenders to work or to school or shopping, wherever I go. And I often get asked from children, you know, what are they? And I proudly say now, oh, I'm autistic, I have ADHD, I'm really auditory, so sometimes the noise levels get too much, so I pop these in and then I know I'm going to be okay again. So I'm normalising my difficulties. Really good. That's like key. Again, the same at home. If I'm having a tricky day, I said, this was really tricky, so I'm having to do this, you know. I normalise not being normal of those, that, you know, I hate that word, but you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, normal. What's normal? What is normal? Who invented normal? So who is your biggest support in your journey?
It is my husband, because God, I get teary saying this as well. So again, a personal share of back when I was going to be a mum, I was kind of told I couldn't be a mum because I had an ectopic pregnancy back before Faith, you know, before my husband and that. And I never thought I was going to be a mum. And then obviously I met John, and he's going to say he's like this, you know, the superhero, because that's how it happened. Then I fell pregnant. I went through this journey, and you know, she came along, and then she came along to identify me She chose me so that I could then identify myself. And, you know, so my team and my team Dukes are my biggest supporters. We're still on a different journey with my elders, as I said to you earlier, because not that I'm a better parent, Isabel, I'm a better understanding of what autism and ADHD is to the individual now with my youngest compared to my oldest. But my family, you know, my John, Faith and Isabel, and my dog Amber, is important to say, are my biggest, you know, supporters. They cheer me on even before today. It's like, you're going to do this, you're going to do well, Emma. I'm going, just be you, they always say. And that's one thing I've taught them, just be you. So, yeah.
Neurodiverse Voices Podcast, celebrating difference. Yeah, I can't wait to meet them.
Yeah. Met them yet? Have you? Yeah. Isabel's a character of like really, she is... What she says, Mum, I look like my dad, but I act just like you, and it is the truth. She's the one that gets us dancing. You know, she's got full of life. She is.
Yeah, she's great on TikTok.
She does better moves than me, that's for sure.
And who is your biggest inspiration?
Inspiration? God, that's a question, isn't it? I think that's a hard one for me. My biggest inspiration, it maybe sounds so thingy, but is myself.
Mm-hmm. No, that's
because
more people should see themselves as being their biggest inspiration.
Yeah, when I grew up, I didn't know who I was. You know, I was Lorraine. I've always been Lorraine, but I was very lost in life. I had a lot of, you know, some trauma and things like that, and then I never thought I'd be standing here today, being a teacher for one. I was told I wouldn't go to university. Well, I'm really sorry if you're listening. I've been to uni twice now and I plan to go back. I've jumped out of an aeroplane. I've done all these things I never thought I'd achieve. So my biggest inspiration is selfishly, but myself, because I was told I wouldn't do these things and I am. And I hope that my girls look up to me as they grow and, you know, say, I can do anything, because I was told I wouldn't, but my mum did, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah. And yeah, you are inspiring to me.
Yeah.
So,
oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think you should be your biggest inspiration. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. If you were a superhero and you had a superpower, who would that be and what superpower would that be?
I would go round with a mirror to make people look at themselves, to see who they to see themselves, if that makes sense. To find who they really are. I think that sounds like just come to me just then, but it would be to go, look, this is you, be you. Because I think so often in life we are forced to mask, we are forced to be society, we are forced to do what we're told rather than being ourselves. So I'd be the reflection.
Yep, and we just need to find a name for that superhero, but
Mr. Reflector.
Maybe Miss.
Yeah, Miss Reflector.
We have enough male superheroes. Well, we have quite a few good female superheroes as well. Yeah. And Lorraine, what are your hopes for the future?
Sort of future are to continue working on people understanding what neurodivergent, you know, neurodivergent conditions are and what they actually are and what they aren't. Again, personal to the individual. So that and looking at our strengths. Quite often, to get a diagnosis, you've got to look at your difficulties and your weaknesses. Well, yeah, otherwise you're just seen as coping, or, you know, you're not autism because you can cope. Well, I'd like that to be flipped completely into reverse, into us understanding that these neurodivergent conditions as strengths and not weaknesses.
Yeah, one day we will get there.
Yeah. Slowly changing. And again, as we grow our communities and network and we're creating bigger communities.
Yeah, and as you said, you know, we are seeing glimpses of change. So we just need to be patient, which is something none of us are. But yeah, we will get there.
Not my strong point.
I always say that if anyone knows a shop where they sell patience, let me know, because I will go and buy some. And finally, if your heart had a voice, what would it tell us?
If my heart had a voice. Again, it's just be you. Love yourself. Be you, because there's only one you on the world. So just allow yourself to be yourself.
Yeah, we only have one life.
Yeah.
Some people might argue that we have more than one life,
Yes.
but scientifically, we only have one life, so we should definitely be ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
you very
This was
much.
such a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it.
Empowered me again. It fills my bucket up, ready to do the next task that I need to do. So thank you very much as well. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Something else that you can
Tick off my box.
your box.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Isn't Lorraine pretty amazing? How much has she inspired you with all that she does to support the neurodivergent community with the many hats she wears? It has been an absolute pleasure to have interviewed her. Her journey of self-discovery hasn't been an easy one. However, I admire her for all her strengths and most of all for her honesty and openness about being autistic and being a mother to 2 autistic girls. And I am a massive supporter of Neurodiuniverse. The advice she gives to teachers and parents is moving. Most of all, remember what her heart would say if it had a voice. Just be yourself and love yourself. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Neurodiverse Voices Podcast. The next episode will be out on the 16th of November with my guest, Richard Liverman. Richard is ADHD himself and a father to an autistic son. He will share also his journey of self-discovery, as well as having been late diagnosed and how much he celebrates being a father to a neurodivergent son. You know what to do. Tune in on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. I look forward to having you on that side.